Hi everyone, it's Mouse again. You're getting 2 videos in a row. Aren't you excited? I'm excited because my husband and I just finished installing our drip irrigation system in our front garden, and I wanted to go over a little bit of the tools and some tricks that I have figured out since I started with soaker hoses, and then a little bit this year with drip, and now that everything's hooked up and working, I just wanted to go over how you do it. I mean, the basics, what kind of connections you're going to need, what kind of setup I have, and some of the tools that I found to be really useful, and some of the tools that maybe weren't so useful. But yeah, here we go. Okay, so starting off, we did a combination of both 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch tubing. So all of our 1/4 inch tubing is solid vinyl tubing. There is no drip emitters in this 1/4 inch tubing. You can also get drip emitters permanently installed in 1/4 inch tubing, but we chose not to go that route because you're limited when you use 1/4 inch on the amount of length your run can be. So if you use 1/4 inch tubing, you can't go more than 30 feet in one run. And since my front yard is 30 feet long, I wanted the ability to go the entire length and grid back in on itself without losing pressure. I wanted it to actually function properly. So we didn't do it that way. So we used solid tubing, and then we used individual emitters off the end of the 1/4 inch. So that's what this box is. I have all of the names on these little cards. I'm sorry, I'm sitting on a bucket while doing this, so it's a little bit strange. I saved all the cards for all the little packs that I've bought. And I've got a little bit of everything left. These are inline shutoffs and turn-ons. Sorry. Yeah, inline shutoffs and turn-offs. These are all in the on position right now. That's how I store them, just to make sure that nothing builds up in them and they still function. I have not actually used any of those yet. I bought those just in case I needed them for the pot line that we have, in case after I harvest I decide that I just want to be able to turn off the lines, because we're going to lose pots out of that lineup at some point this summer once the potatoes are ready. So I wanted to be able to turn the drippers off when there's no plants there, because it doesn't make sense to have drippers where there are plants, where there are not plants, excuse me. Let's see, what else do we have in here? I'm gonna pick this up and put it in my lap. There we go, that's much easier, much easier. So we have some stakes in here that just help hold drippers in place, and then this stake is really cool. This is a stake, but it also has a dripper actually incorporated into the stake. These were kind of expensive, if I remember correctly. I think these were like 3 of them for, I want to say $5, but it could have been $6. I didn't write down any of the prices. They're all available at Lowe's. Like almost all of these fittings you can get at Lowe's. Some of them I ordered online just because my Lowe's was out of stock and I was impatient and I didn't want to wait for them to get back into stock, because they're not so great at bringing stuff back. And some of the items that I wanted just in case, they don't carry in store. They have them online, but they don't carry them in store. And again, Lowe's shipping is not the best in the world. They're kind of horrible. So we went to another place. We went to Merrifield, in Merrifield, Virginia, and they had not a lot, but they had some of the stuff that Lowe's was missing, including these corner pieces, which I bought a pack of these because I knew I had one instance where I needed one of these corners, and it worked great. But they come in multi-packs, so now I have a whole bunch of them. But that's fine, I'll use them in another case. The other thing that I knew I wanted were these cross pieces. I didn't actually end up using any of them, but for certain layouts, I can just visualize that they would be super like helpful. So I made sure I picked up some of those for the 1/4 inch ones. These came with the stakes. They're a bug guard. You can see through it. It literally is just because These ones, you're supposed to put the dripper as the attachment point and then hose off the dripper and then put this on the end of the hose. I don't think I will ever set them up that way. I just don't like it. I usually use a little straight connection like this. Connect the hoses together and yeah, connect the hoses together, and then I put the dripper at the very end, and that's what holds it on the stake itself. That's just the way I like to do it. So then I have half gallon, 1 gallon, 2 gallon, and then adjustable up to 10 gallon is what these ones are. My love, can you take the babies? Like, not here?
Going inside.
Just take them over there for now.
Oh, no, I'm just going inside.
So, yeah, that's how those work. These right here are called goof plugs. Goof plugs fix where, oh, I punched a hole in the wrong place, or, oh, I don't need this line anymore. Let me cap it off. That's basically what these do. Let's see what else is in here. Those are just more adjustable dripper heads. Oh, I just told you that. Duh. These are tees. These are really useful. I found these to be more useful when I was using the 1/2 inch one, which is obviously a different fixture, but I used a lot more tees. No, I used a lot of tees, period. I think I might have gone through a crap ton of those. But anyways. But yeah, those are my 1/4 inch supplies, and then these are more just straight couplers. They're just a different style, but they all work the same. But yeah, those are them. Oh, and then this down here. These are nails with a little clamp on them that holds the hose without putting pressure on the hose, so that you can nail it into a wall, or in my case, I nailed it into our split rail fencing. For the 1/2 inch tubing, we have both, we have actually 3 different types of 1/2 inch tubing. We have this one, which is 1/2 inch tubing with 1 gallon per hour emitters every 9 inches. So you can see the little hole right there that marks the emitters. And those are about 9 inches apart. That's the one we have the most of, because that's the spacing that I would prefer. The kit that I originally bought came with, and I didn't realize it, but it came with 1/2 inch hosing with 1 gallon per hour drippers every 18 inches, which I think is way too big for vegetable crops. For perennials, I think it would probably be perfect, but for the style of gardening that I do when it comes to planting like edibles, I plant everything really, really, really close together, and most edibles are very thirsty plants, so they want really, really, really good saturation of their soil, and the 18 inch is just a little bit too far apart. So I did use the 18 inch drip up primarily in my perennial edible beds that are up front, so the mint bed that also has the elephant ears that I showed you guys yesterday, and then the bed that has my sage and my lavender and my rosemary and a couple sunflowers. I used it up there. But then also in one of my beds, you'll see it's brown tubing. It's the only brown tube out of all of this stuff, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. I used it down the center of one of my beds. So it's kind of being the filler between the 2 runs that are the right depth. Oops, sorry, I lose my fingers. So this is my 1/2 inch coupler box. It's got some stakes in here. I've also got some random, like, general 3/4 hose pieces in here, because when you're initially setting up the system, that's where you come from, is you come from a garden hose, and most garden hoses are 3/4 inch. So I've got some of those fixtures in here. These are some fixtures from soaker hoses, which I didn't use any of those this year. I may use soaker hoses in our backyard, which is all perennial, like, ornamentals. So yeah, our garden layout is a little bit different from most people. We do all of our vegetables in the front and all of our pretty stuff in the back in our private area. Just because the perennial stuff, I don't care quite so much if it performs super well. If it does, that's great. But to me, the more important thing is food production. Even if I don't get a lot, I'd rather give the food more of a head start. And food specifically likes morning sun the most. And since we are east facing, well, northeast facing, the front of our house just gets blasted in the morning. So that's perfect for vegetables because they really don't like having wet leaves for long periods of time. So they get that first morning blast of sun. It drives the dew off of them, which is really good. And then, excuse me, they stay nice and healthy. So in here, I mean, I've got some pretty basic stuff for the 1/4 inch. There are a couple more couplers for the 1/4 inch, for the 1/2 inch. A couple more couplers for the 1/2 inch that I would like to have that I just haven't been able to get my hands on. So in here, I've got some straights, which are really good if you've got a puncture or a hole, or you accidentally put a spade through your line. You can just cut out the cut portion and put in a coupler. I've got corners. Corners are always good, especially since I do all of my garden beds in angles. So to make a turn, I need corners, and they're awesome for that. Tees, I used a lot of tees this year. If I were to count them up, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, I used 9 tees in just my 1/4 inch, just so that I could do the shapes that I wanted to do and to get the grid that I wanted set up in my beds. But I did get it all set up and I'm super happy with it. And then corners, I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I used 7 corners, and then I have, what do I have here? I have 4 left. So I actually feel really proud of myself. Doesn't seem like I overbought hardly at all. Oh, nope, I used 8 corners because there's one right here on this riser to go up into the mid bed. So I'm really proud of myself. I didn't overdo it with buying of fixtures. I mean, I have extras, but it's not like I have a crap ton of extra. And I am being a little bit diligent about making sure that I have them organized, because originally I was just keeping everything in a gallon Ziploc bag, like 1/4 inch in one and then 1/2 inch in another. And it was getting really frustrating, even when I was just trying to like lay it out on a table and be like, okay, I'm going to make this shape and then move on. It was getting really frustrating trying to find the piece. So thankfully up in my craft room, I had this little box, which I think is for beads, but it worked out perfect for the 1/4 inch. And I think I got this at Michael's. It may have been Joann's. And for that matter, it might have been Dollar Tree. I don't even know. It's just a cheap little box. It's really not that great of a quality, but it works perfect for the 1/4 inch. And then this box is also from Lowe's. I asked them, where's your parts and pieces boxes? And there was a couple different sizes. And for what I needed, I picked the medium. So there's one that's like half of it, or like 2/3. Or no, not 2/3, that's 3/5. There's like 3/5, and then there's one that's probably double the size of this, so it's huge. And I was like, I don't think I have that many fixtures. I don't think I'm ever gonna have that many fixtures. If I do, I'll just buy another small one, or I'll buy another medium one and just stack them. But I really do like this container. It locks down really well, so even if you were storing smaller stuff, oops, my fingers are in the way. Even if you were storing smaller stuff, I think it would really hold it sealed, which is great. So then going over the tools that I used, I used a lot of landscape staples, so like a lot. Like I don't have any landscape staples left right now, which is very odd. I usually have a whole bunch, but I have none right now. They've all been used for the irrigation system to hold the hoses down and keep them in place. So I have a rubber mallet there that is a deadhead mallet, and that's what I use to put in my stakes, which is great. It provides just enough force so that the staples go in, but they don't bend. So it's kind of awesome that way. And then that's just a regular old hammer. I think this was my dad's. I'm actually pretty sure it was my dad's. And it's an antique of some type, I believe. I think it might have even been my grandfather's. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him. And then the tools that came with the drip system are these. These are what are called punch tools. Although really, I wouldn't count this one as a punch tool. I'd more count this as an assisting tool. So this one, you're supposed to take the actual fixtures and put them in that hole and then use the fixture as the punch tool. So you're gonna punch and install the fixture at the same time, which sounds great in theory, but the problem is that if you're not using a straight coupler, it's kind of a pain in the ass, because they don't sit inside this circle very well because there's this lip. So if you're using a T and you're trying to go into the center hole of the T, you can't start that way. You have to start on one of the ends. And if you're like me, sometimes your brain just doesn't work that way and you want to start on a specific point so that you can be like, okay, I'm measuring from here to here, but it wouldn't let you do that. So I got really frustrated with this when I just did a few test punches of like hose. I sacrificed like a 12-inch section of a plain hose and just did a bunch of random stuff with it just to see how it worked. And then I cut it all apart and kept all the fixtures just to make sure that I knew how it worked and got it functioning. So while I was at Lowe's, and I looked online at Drip Depot and at Amazon, and the one that I really wanted from Drip Depot was sold out, of course. So I ended up going with this one from Lowe's, which I actually really like a lot because it's got this like U-shaped guard right here, which when you puncture into the 1/2-inch tubing only lets the puncture go so far. So you can't accidentally punch through both layers because it supports the hose and makes it so that it stops. You puncture through and it just stops. You can't go any further. Well, you could if you really wanted to, but it's much more difficult. The other really cool thing is, if I can get it out with one hand while I'm holding my phone, whoop, as it goes flying, it came with this, which is really, really cool. This is a drip cleaner. So the little drip heads, sometimes over time apparently, will fill up with soil, and every once in a while, if you notice it being really slow, you just go in there with this little piece of wire and you just clear out the little pieces of debris, and then the dripper will start working again. So I thought that was really cool that this installation tool came with a cleaning tool for your drippers. But I really, really like this one. It has some installation assist holes in it where you put the fixture in and it helps you hold the fixture. But then again, like I said, it has this really nice punch, which is really simple to use. You just push down on it and it punctures through. And then it also has this channel along the back, which I haven't really figured out what this is for, other than maybe it's another way of using an assist, because it does have some grooves up here. So maybe you can put a hose through here. Yeah, I think that's probably how you use it. I haven't used it that way yet. I've just used it as puncture, and then I've pushed all the connections together. One thing I did notice, which you probably are all wondering, why the hell there's a freaking blowtorch here? The blowtorch is actually a way to make the 1/2-inch connectors easier. You can use boiling water, you can use a blowtorch, you can let it sit out in the sun and then just fight with it. I really, really, really like the blowtorch because all you do is you light the blowtorch and you heat up the end of the tube that you're trying to put into the connector just slightly until the plastic softens just a little bit, and then it just slides right on, and it's really, really easy if you get it heated evenly. And then when the plastic cools back down, it actually shrinks, so it makes a really, really, really tight seal too, which is another thing I really, really like. But yeah, that's pieces of kit that I have. Oh, and then of course, to cut all of your tubing, you just need a normal pair of garden secateurs or trimmers. I don't even know what brand these are. These are crappy ones that I bought a while ago, but they work really well, so those are what I've been using. I think they're similar in design to actual Felcos, but they're not. They're knockoffs, but I do really like them. Felcos are like a dream garden shear. Really silly, but they're apparently like indestructible. And then of course zip ties. I haven't had to use any zip ties on my drip system yet, but if you're gonna go up like a shepherd's hook in the middle of your yard, or if you're doing drip along like your roof line that goes into your hanging baskets, zip ties are your best friend for getting the hose to go along the metal instead of like hanging down in a weird place, so that it kind of helps camouflage the fact that there's a hose there, especially if you're using black shepherd's hooks or black hooks hanging off the side of your house for your hanging pots. Because I don't think you can get 1/4-inch drip tube in any other color other than black or white. You might be able to find it at certain places in brown, but I have not seen it in brown. I've seen black, white, and oh wait, no, I have seen another color, dark green. Which dark green I think would be really cool, especially if you're just doing like a line of like evergreens because it would kind of disappear, but black was what we had. Black was the easiest available for us, and I actually kind of like the look of black because I think it stands out enough against your dirt that you can actually see where it's going, but it blends in enough that it's not like, oh my god, drip tubing. Like the brown tubing, I'll show you over here, it just stands out to me something fierce, and I don't particularly love it. I will be covering all of my drip tube probably sometime this week with cocoa shell mulch because I have all of my cocoa shell mulch over there, and you won't be able to see hardly any of it. You'll be able to see the supply lines and this little splitter that I have here, which is kind of unfortunate, but it's just the realities of I have to get water to 4 different places, and that's how you do it. But yeah, that's my drip system. That's how I've installed it. Those are the tools that I use. And yeah, but then I'll run you through our drip system again really quick. So coming off of our timer and our feeder, we have a splitter here that goes in 4 different directions. One direction feeds both the long bed on one side of our pathway and the mint bed. It's teed and then it goes up an elbow. The mint and the elephant ears don't need a lot of water, so I felt really confident with having them split off of another system. So that's what we did. This bed is the bed that I have the most water going into, which is good because that's where I seem to be having the most like dry out death. So it has 3 lines of 1/2-inch tube with 1 gallon emitters every 9 inches. Yes, 9 inches. So then the bed next to it, which is fed by the next little divider right there, has 2 of those lines in it, the 1 gallon every 9 inches, and then the center line is that other piece of every 18 inches 1 gallon emitters that I didn't particularly like, but I needed to use up, so that's where it is. But I think it's a good place for it because, like I said, the other 2 lines on here are going to water it a lot, and then that's just going to kind of like fill in the gap. So I don't know, I like the coverage that I've got on this bed, but I really like the coverage on the other bed. You can see it because I ran the system to test it, and that's just 10 minutes and it's nice and soaked and ready to go, so that's really nice. This one which is my rosemary and sage bed, is this 3rd one with the hose clamp on it because it was leaking, so I had to fix it. This one has a circle just like the mint bed, and it has the 18-inch every 18 inches 1 gallon per hour emitters in that brown hose, and you can barely see it because it's underneath the cocoa shell mulch, which I really like. The last hose right there actually goes along the back of this bed on top of the back of the loop, and then it switches from 1/2 inch into 1/4 inch, and that's what feeds my pot line here. You can see the clamp down there. These clamps are actually really cool. I thought I wouldn't like them, but I actually really do. The way that they work is that you purposely kink the end of the hose, and that's how it stops the water from going all over the place. So I think those are really cool. But the awesome thing about them is that they're super reusable. Like, I was using them as a temporary clamp before I got my other hoses in the mail, and they work super well. They hold the water, and they were super easy to take off. So I thought I was going to hate them, but I actually really like them after I've used them a little bit. This first drip set actually shows you how I like to use these little stakes. So I like to put the stake at the end of the emitter head and put the emitter head at the end of the little hose. So I've got a corner here, a T. These are both 1 or half. I gotta look. I remember. I cut my hoses too short at first, so then I just used some straight couplers and coupled them together. It doesn't look the best in the world, but it gets the job done. And then there you can see those nail clamps holding it up against our split rail fence. Another T to a strip down to another T. And then, so my chives have 1 gallon per hour emitters. Sorry, that's hard to see. There you go. But then all of my potatoes have the adjustable ones. And I believe I have them all set to 2.5 gallons per hour. But again, they don't actually ever get 2.5 gallons at once. They get, what's 2.5 divided by 3? 3/4 of a gallon every day at like 4 in the morning. So yeah, but that's how they work. So Every potato has the adjustable one. Every chive has it's just 1 gallon period. That's all it gets. And then it goes all the way down. Each one of the pots, every 2 pots has a T connector watering both of those pots, and there's 2 T connectors per pot, or per set of pots. So it works out to be 1 T connector per pot plus 1 dripper, which I know sounds a little bit crazy. I could have just done 1 emitter per, but I didn't want to have a whole bunch of things hanging down. I thought it would look really tacky, so I did every other instead, and I think it looks a little bit better. It may look just as tacky when the pots aren't there, I don't know yet, but I think it looks a little bit better in the long run. Down here on the very last pot, because I have an odd number, this is another corner connector, which I'm using as an end cap at the same time, going down to a single 1 gallon per hour emitter on this last chive plant. But yeah, that's my drip system, guys. I haven't hooked up my hanging baskets. I'm still deciding whether or not I want to do that now or I want to level out my front yard first. I'm thinking we're probably going to end up leaning to wait to do it until we level out the front yard, because no matter what, because it's going over grass, I'd have to trench. And if I don't trench it deep to start with, and then I try to level, I'm just going to end up cutting tubing. So I think we're going to end up waiting and we'll just hope and pray that it's enough. But yeah, that's my drip system and another sneak peek of the garden from yesterday. So it's not that big of a difference. But yeah, that's how it looks, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Bye.